Hi, I'm Pete Kiko. I'm an auctioneer and realtor with Kiko Auctioneers and Realtors. To my right here is Justin Troyer with Farmers Bank. Justin is a mortgage loan consultant. Can you hit on that a little bit? Like, what is a mortgage loan consultant?
Yeah, essentially a mortgage loan consultant is basically somebody that helps with the home buying process. You know, there's a lot of different types of mortgages out there. So it's essentially somebody that can help with getting somebody a mortgage and consulting them through the process of buying a house.
Yeah, so you're helping. So if they're first time, or even if not, if you know had loans before, you're kind of like the guide.
Yeah.
Let's say the guide that gets them through.
Yep. So we guide them kind of from the process of where are you at? Are you just starting to look for houses? Are you wanting to know what you can be pre-qualified for? You know, what's your plan? And we essentially take it from beginning to end.
Perfect. So that's, you mentioned the process there. Let's talk about this maybe from a first-time buyer standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
That's where a lot of these questions are coming from, and that's why I wanted to bring you in and kind of discuss it. So, say I'm a first-time buyer and I want to purchase this home or property. Mm-hmm. Kind of talk about the steps there, like from the application process, but just a little more in depth on what this looks like from a first-time buyer's perspective.
So, first-time buyer, the most important step, which a lot of people forget about, is before you start going to any auction or listing properties or anything like that, is you want to meet with your loan officer to do a pre-qualification. Okay. You want to run numbers prior to, so that way when you're looking at houses, hey, what can I afford? What do payments look like? You might just go to a house and say, hey, this is what I want to buy, and you put an offer on a house that gets accepted, and you have no idea what a payment is, or if you can afford it. So the first step, and what any realtor or auctioneer would want to see, is that, hey, you ran numbers, you have that pre-qualification letter ready to go.
Yeah, and that gives them as a buyer more confidence.
Right.
And that's what we like to see. That's why we enjoy doing business with you and vice versa, because we really make sure that these buyers are set up in a good position. So breaking this down, so let's talk about the application process, or what it looks like getting pre-qualified.
So with the pre-qualification, we can actually set somebody up without ever really looking at documents. It gets a little interesting with those. Pre-qualification technically is a credit report pull to show what are your credit scores, what debts do you have out there, and you're essentially telling us where you work, what you make, and we're basing it off of what you tell us. You take that pre-qualification, and that allows you to go buy a house. Switching it from a pre-qualification to an application, let's say you guys have an accepted offer. Now's where it starts getting into the nitty-gritty. Now, depending on how are you paid, we're getting W-2s, we're getting tax returns, things like that.
Yeah, so you're going from this level into more like the weeds.
Correct.
And looking at it. Let's talk about that process a little bit. Now, I know you guys do a lot from your app. You do it digitally. You do it in person. I know you prefer in person. We're people.
Little old school.
Yeah, we're people. But there's avenues that you guys have out there really to help the buyer or the application stage. But yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. And how does this look? Them rolling down through it. So once we're getting into that lower level.
Yep. So we actually have the ability for people to do pre-qualifications or even applications through our mobile app. Okay. We have an online website that people can go to farmersbankgroup.com and they can apply directly through an online website. You can call us and we can do pre-qualifications over the phone, through email, everything like that. Or my favorite, I'm still old school, we meet in person and kind of dive through everything in person. So we have kind of a slew of, the digital age and whatever meets your needs. People might have a job where they can't come in during business hours. Yeah. That's where the app and online banking helps.
Phenomenal. That's great. So now let's talk about, they have their application, that we're moving forward. And this kind of hits on, as a buyer and a seller side. So we have an accepted contract. Our buyer is now qualified to buy. What's this process, or what's the timeline moving forward to closing? What can both the buyer and the seller expect moving forward?
Yeah, and let me go back to real quick the pre-qualification stage. I mentioned we can do that based off of verbal. One thing I always point out to clients is, you can tell me what you make all you want, but I prefer to see it. you know, because sometimes there can be, you know, a little bit of a miscommunication on what exactly are you looking for.
Okay.
So to point out the difference, if you're self-employed or if you're paid on a W-2, kind of dictates what we need.
Right.
If you're self-employed, that's tax returns.
Mhm.
If you're paid on a W-2, it's W-2s and pay stubs. So the more we have when we do your pre-qualification, the easier it's going to be when this switches to an application. You sign a contract. What that means is, as a buyer, we really need to go now.
Yeah.
Because you give me the contract, now instead of running a pre-qualification on a mock property, we have one.
Right.
So we start your application, we collect your income docs, we send that to underwriting,
Mhm.
and that's where it goes forward from there. Underwriters order the appraisal for the property,
Mm-hmm.
they order the title work with whatever title company is on that property's purchase agreement,
Okay.
and then they start underwriting your file. They're going to verify the income, the assets, everything like that to move your file forward.
And they even look at the property.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
why the appraisal is important.
Correct.
I mean, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding is the bank's making sure that this property is what they say it is for
Correct.
you to loan on it. Is
Yeah,
that-
essentially your appraiser's giving you the value, stating what you
Mhm.
bought it for is what it's sufficiently valued at.
Right.
And they're doing kind of, not necessarily home inspection, but what I always call a mock home inspection.
Yeah.
They're making sure the water's running, the electric's on, roof's not leaking, there's no water in the basement.
Right.
Your big things like that.
Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. So, and generally speaking, well, right now, let's use it in today's terms. How long is that underwriting process? Or how long, within a window?
Okay, so from the time we submit your file to underwriting to the time your commitment letter is cut. Your commitment letter is what the bank's going to say, hey, we're committed to doing this loan, and it lists the conditions we need.
Okay.
I would assume generally turnaround times are a week and a half to 2 weeks.
Okay.
That's not including the fact that the appraisal won't be back yet, title work's typically not back yet.
Right.
That's the bank saying, here's your official loan approval commitment letter saying you're approved subject to these conditions.
Perfect. Perfect. And yeah, you hit on a couple different topics there. One being, title work. With title companies, they kind of have seasons like you and I do.
Right.
And, our busy season, they're generally 45 days to
Yeah.
2 months behind us because they're doing all these steps. So there are bottlenecks, and, in talking with a lot of our clients, we let them know, hey, the title companies are slammed right
Yeah.
now. We understand that. And,
Yeah.
this is kind of the process. But it's great information. What I want to hit on next is, so underwriting's done. What's this process look like, wrapping it up on the bank's end and getting all the information to that title company?
So let's say we have an example with an applicant that is very clean. Okay,
Okay.
everything's done. The commitment letter basically says, hey, Mr. Borrower, you're approved subject to an appraisal and title work.
Okay.
All that means to us is the underwriting aspect of income, verifying down payment is done. Once the appraisal comes back and the title work is handed into us, the underwriters are going to review those,
Mhm.
make sure that meets all the criteria we need it to. And once that's done, it gets sent to our closing department. Okay. Our closing department will then work directly with the title company, giving them the clear to close, saying, hey, this file has been officially cleared. We have everything we need. We're ready to schedule a closing date.
Perfect. Perfect. And we have the same here at Kiko. We have our own closing department, and we've worked with yours very, very tightly. But yeah, in both sides, from the banking side and us as a realtor side, it's all set up to help our clients, the buyers and the sellers,
Right.
get to closing. I mean, no, that's fine. So again, we'll circle the wagon here. You mentioned that if it's a clean conditions letter,
Mhm.
right? Explain a little bit more. If say it's, do you use the term dirty? Do you say unclean? I mean, if there are conditions that say,
Right,
hit
so-
on how that would look.
Let's say somebody gets a commitment letter and it says, this is a proof of what you applied for, subject to the appraisal and the title work, but maybe we're missing a pay stub. A commitment letter is essentially going to say, these are the conditions we need to clear before we can move your file to closing.
Right.
Say I have a borrower that's getting money from parents. They might not have all the money for down payment. There'll be a condition on the commitment letter that says verification of sufficient funds to close.
Right.
So prior to closing, we have to verify that borrower has the money in their account.
Okay.
They can now close. Or if we're missing a pay stub, we have that pay stub to prove they're still working. Things like that. So, the comparison to, hey, a clean commitment letter just means, hey, great, there is no conditions. If we have conditions that we need to clear while we're waiting on the appraisal and title work, That's vital, because I'll get with my client at that point and say, hey, we need X, Y, and Z,
Right,
and
right.
we need to work on this now. That way, when the appraisal and title work comes in, we're ready.
Yeah.
That way, if this is in and we don't have these cleared, we can't send it to closing. We need this done before we
Exactly
can.
right. Exactly, and there might be hiccups in that,
Yeah.
and that, you know, not saying it'd be delayed past the closing period, but that what might be why some of these sellers are getting antsy, because you are in the trenches in this.
Yeah.
As a mortgage loan consultant, you're
Yeah.
teeing these up and trying to knock them down.
Well, that is, it can delay your closing, like you just said.
It can, not necessarily. It doesn't do it all the time. But
Correct.
a lot of sellers are like, "Why is this taking so long?"
Right.
Well, that's because you're in the weeds trying to iron this out, and
Yeah.
we might even have to iron out things on the selling side too, as well. Like if the home inspection came back and some things need fixed,
Right.
I'm working with sellers too, trying to get this, the rail fixed, the furnace, or there's an issue with the roof, something like that, or a chimney. I had that one recently. So, yeah, there's a lot that goes on both sides. But if anybody ever has questions, just reach out to your realtor, auctioneer, or your mortgage loan consultant.
Yeah, because that's where, to take it one step further to kind of to your point, where what I meant by the delay portion is what people don't realize is you get this commitment letter, you're like, I'll get those documents over to them when I can.
Right.
Just by giving me the documents doesn't clear the condition. Those documents have to be sent to an underwriter so they can clear it. So that's the important part. It all goes back to underwriting. The underwriter sends you your commitment letter and said, this is what we need. Just because you give it to me doesn't mean, hey, it's cleared.
Right.
I have to upload it, an underwriter has to get it. So when I call you and say, hey, Junior, I need X, Y, and Z,
Yeah.
the quicker you get me X, Y, and Z, the quicker we can keep moving forward.
Exactly.
Because when it comes down to it, if we got everything we need and we're still waiting on a condition, we don't want to be the holdup for you.
Right.
We want to be ready to go.
Yeah, exactly right. And now this reminds me of something else too, and I wanted to touch on this. Say, a guy puts an offer in on a property, it's accepted, we're moving forward. There's usually a timeline, right? Like, hey, you have to get your banking in order within 30 days. Your loan commitment, exactly right. And somebody's coming to you on day 20, that puts you in the hole, right?
Well, A, you're affecting your seller, and you're
Right.
affecting yourself, because a loan commitment, going back to your original question, how long does it take the underwriting process? From the time we send it to underwriting to the time your commitment letter is cut is a week and a half to 2 weeks.
Right.
So if you come see me day 20, we might be able to get you your commitment letter within there. If you come see me at day 25, no.
Right.
But even with that being said, back to the beginning, when we send it to underwriting, that's when we order the appraisal and the title work.
Right.
So if you wait 3 weeks to bring us your contract, the likelihood of you closing on time is not very high,
Right.
because we have to wait on the appraisal and we have to wait on the title work.
Yeah.
So it's important, as soon as you get that contract, get with your loan officer.
Exactly
So that
right.
starts that process. That verbiage in there with the commitment letter is just to say, hey, we need it by then,
Mhm.
but really you need to start your loan application as soon as you get a
possible.
contract.
Right, exactly right. And that's what a lot of people don't realize, more and more, it's such a hot market right now.
Yeah.
More and more people are trying to sell their homes themselves, which is fine. I wish them the best of luck. But this is where a lot of those deals start unraveling,
Yep.
because they don't have people that understand the process and, get the right pieces in place at the right time.
Yeah.
Right. So, again, Justin, I appreciate your time,
Hey.
sir. It's always a pleasure talking with you. I think thanks for coming
Of course.
in. And if anybody has questions later on, feel free to ask me. I'd like to do more of these videos.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can reach out to Justin at any time. Again, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man. Appreciate it.